Was I wrong for what I did at Christmas dinner? Tell me if you would have done the same thing, because honestly, I'm still reeling from the shock of it all. My own brother, at our family's sacred Christmas meal, looked me dead in the eye and told me it was time to move out. He said it with such casual cruelty, as if he were discussing the weather, not my entire life and home. But he had no idea who he was dealing with, and he certainly wasn't prepared for what I showed him next. The property deed, with my name, and asterisk only asterisk my name, emblazoned on it. The look on his face, priceless. But let me take you back to the beginning, to truly understand the tangled web of family drama that led to that explosive moment. My brother, Mark, has always been, well, a piece of work. He's 2 years older than me, and from the moment we were kids, there was this undeniable rivalry, mostly fueled by him. I was the quieter, more studious one, always trying to please our parents, while Mark was the charismatic, rebellious type who could charm anyone while simultaneously causing absolute chaos. Our parents, bless their hearts, tried their best to treat us equally, but Mark always seemed to demand more attention, more resources, and more leeway. He was a master manipulator, even as a child, and I, being the naive younger sibling, often fell prey to his schemes. Fast forward to adulthood, and not much had changed. I went to college, got my degree, and started a decent job in marketing. Mark, on the other hand, bounced from one get-rich-quick scheme to another. He'd try to start a business, fail spectacularly, and then move back home with our parents for a few months, only to repeat the cycle. Our parents, ever the enablers, would always take him back, always lend him money, always believe his latest grand plan. It was infuriating to watch, especially knowing how hard I worked for everything I had. The house, the one that became the center of this Christmas debacle, was our childhood home. It's a beautiful, old Victorian, full of memories, both good and bad. Our parents had lived there for over 40 years, and it was a place I truly loved. About 5 years ago, my father got sick. It was a long, slow decline, and it hit our family hard. During that time, Mark was, predictably, mostly absent. He'd make appearances, offering platitudes and vague promises of help. But it was me who took on the bulk of the caregiving alongside our mother. I'd rush over after work, spend weekends running errands, managing appointments, and simply being there. My mother, who was also getting older and frailer, leaned on me heavily. It was during this period that my father, with a wisdom that I now truly appreciate, started talking about the future of the house. He knew Mark wasn't reliable. He knew Mark would likely try to sell it and squander the money. He also knew that I deeply cherished the home and would preserve it. So, one evening, while Mark was off on another one of his business trips, which usually involved him gambling away whatever savings he had, my father called me into his study. He sat me down, his voice weak but firm, and told me he wanted to make sure the house stayed in the family, and that it stayed with someone who would care for it. He said he was going to put the house solely in my name, a decision he discussed with my mother, who wholeheartedly agreed. I was stunned and incredibly touched. It was a huge responsibility, but also a tremendous honor. We went to a lawyer a few weeks later, and the paperwork was drawn up. The deed was transferred, clean and clear, to me. My parents continued to live there, of course, and I lived in my own apartment nearby, visiting constantly. When my father passed away a year later, the grief was immense. Mark, naturally, flew in for the funeral, put on a show of profound sadness, and then, a week later, asked our mother for money to get his life back on track. My mother, still grieving and vulnerable, nearly gave it to him, but I stepped in. I reminded her of Dad's wishes, of how much he'd sacrificed for us, and that enabling Mark would only continue the cycle. She hesitated, but ultimately agreed with me. Mark was furious, accusing me of manipulating our mother, of being selfish, of trying to cut him out. It was a bitter argument, but I stood my ground. He left in a huff, and we didn't hear from him for months. A couple of years passed. My mother's health declined further, and it became clear she couldn't live alone anymore. I suggested she move in with me, but she was adamant about staying in her home, the one she shared with Dad. So, I made the decision to move back into the family house to care for her. It wasn't an easy choice. It meant giving up my independence, but it was what she needed, and honestly, it felt right to be back in the place I loved. I continued working remotely, and I devoted myself to caring for my mother. She thrived with me there, and those last few years we had together were truly special. She passed away peacefully in her sleep last spring. It was heartbreaking, but I found solace in knowing I had been there for her, just as Dad had wanted. After her passing, the house was empty, save for me. I continued to live there, taking care of the upkeep, paying all the bills, and slowly making it my own again. I renovated a few rooms, invested in some much-needed repairs, and truly poured my heart and soul into maintaining it. Mark, of course, resurfaced after Mom's death. He showed up, full of fake concern, but I knew what he was after, the house. He assumed, I suppose, that Mom's death meant the house would automatically be split between us, or perhaps sold, and he'd get a chunk of money. I calmly explained to him that the house was mine, legally, and had been for years. He laughed in my face. He called me a liar, a thief, a manipulative witch. He said our parents would never have done such a thing, that I must have coerced them, taken advantage of their old age. I showed him a copy of the deed then, just to shut him up. He scanned it, his face turning a sickly shade of green, and then, in a fit of rage, crumpled it up and threw it at me. He screamed that he would contest it, that he would take me to court, that I wouldn't get away with it. I simply told him to talk to his lawyer, because mine was ready. He stormed out, vowing revenge, and I honestly thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong, so that's the situation I was in, and I had to make a choice. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have stood your ground? Would you have tried to reconcile with a brother who clearly felt entitled to something that wasn't his? Or would you have just washed your hands of him completely? I truly want to know what you think. Fast forward to this past Christmas. Every year, our extended family gathers at my aunt and uncle's house for Christmas dinner. It's a tradition that goes back decades, and despite the drama with Mark, I always looked forward to it. This year, however, I had a bad feeling. Mark had been unusually quiet since our last confrontation, which, for him, was never a good sign. He was there, of course, at the dinner, radiating an air of smugness that made my skin crawl. He avoided eye contact with me for most of the evening, chatting loudly with cousins and aunts, making himself the center of attention as usual. The dinner was winding down, everyone was full of turkey and cheer, and the conversation was flowing. That's when Mark, with perfect comedic timing, decided to drop his bombshell. He cleared his throat, stood up slightly from his chair, and looked directly at me. The entire table quieted, sensing a shift in the atmosphere. You know. He began, a fake smile plastered on his face. It's been a long year for all of us, especially with Mom gone, and I think it's time we all start fresh. Especially you, sis. He paused, letting his words hang in the air, enjoying the sudden attention. My stomach clenched. I knew exactly where this was going. He continued, "It's been great having you look after the old place, but frankly, it's not really your place, is it? It's the family home, and it's time we sold it, split the inheritance, and well, you can find your own place." He looked at me, a triumphant sneer now replacing his fake smile. "Time to move out, little sister, the party's over." The silence in the room was deafening. My aunt gasped. My uncle looked like he was about to explode. My cousins stared at Mark, then at me, their faces a mixture of shock and embarrassment. I felt a surge of ice, cold fury rush through me. How dare he try to humiliate me, to strip me of my home at Christmas dinner, of all places. All the years of his entitlement, his selfishness, his utter disregard for anyone but himself, came flooding back. And that's when I snapped. I calmly reached into my purse, which was on the chair beside me. I pulled out a neatly folded document. It wasn't the original deed, of course, but a certified copy I always kept handy, just in case. I unfolded it slowly, deliberately, making sure everyone could see what it was. Then I slid it across the table, directly towards Mark. He looked at it, confused, then picked it up. His eyes scanned the document, moving quickly down to the bottom, and that's when his face, which had been so smug and selfish, just moments before, completely drained of color. He read my name, clearly and unequivocally, as the sole owner. He saw the date, years ago, when our father had legally transferred it to me. He saw the official seals and signatures. He saw the undeniable truth. He looked up at me, his mouth slightly open, a flicker of disbelief and dawning horror in his eyes. He tried to speak, but no words came out. He looked like a deer caught in headlights. I leaned forward, my voice calm, but with an edge of steel that I rarely used. "Actually, Mark," I said, "it is my place, and it has been for 5 years. Dad made sure of that. He wanted the home to be cared for, to stay in the family, with someone who loved it. And that someone was me, not you." He knew exactly what he was doing. I paused, letting my words sink in. "So, no, I won't be moving out, and no, it won't be sold. This house is my home, and it was entrusted to me, perhaps." I added, looking him dead in the eye, "You should consider getting your own place, instead of trying to take what isn't yours." The room erupted. My aunt, usually so reserved, immediately started chastising Mark, telling him how shameful his behavior was. My uncle slammed his hand on the table and demanded Mark apologize to me. Cousins were whispering, some looking angry, others just utterly bewildered. Mark, completely humiliated, stammered a few incoherent words, pushed back his chair, and practically ran out of the dining room, slamming the front door behind him. He didn't even say goodbye. He just vanished into the cold Christmas night. The rest of the evening was a blur. Everyone rallied around me, offering support and apologies for Mark's behavior. They confirmed that they had heard bits and pieces about Dad's wishes, but none had known the full extent of the legal transfer. They praised me for being strong, for taking care of our parents, and for standing up to Mark. It felt good to have their validation, but honestly, I was still shaken. I knew this wouldn't be the last I heard from him, and it wasn't. He sent me a flurry of angry, expletive-filled texts later that night, accusing me of ruining his life, of turning the family against him, of being a manipulative witch. I ignored every single one. He tried to call, but I blocked his number. He even showed up at the house a few days later, banging on the door and demanding to talk, but I refused to open it. I called the police, and they politely but firmly escorted him away, reminding him that I was the rightful owner and he was trespassing. It's been a few months since that Christmas dinner. Mark has gone completely silent. I haven't heard from him, and neither have our relatives. Part of me hopes he's finally gotten the message, that he's finally realized his entitlement has consequences. Another part of me knows that this kind of resentment doesn't just disappear, but I sleep soundly at night, knowing I honored my parents' wishes and I protected our home. It wasn't easy, and it certainly wasn't the Christmas I envisioned, but I stood my ground, and I don't regret it for a second. So, that's my story. It's a messy one, full of family drama and betrayal, but ultimately, it's about standing up for what's right. If you were on my side, please like this video, subscribe for more stories like this, and share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section below. I want to hear what you think. I'll see you all in the next story.